Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this special edition of Immigration Law for Tech Startups. Thank you so much for joining me. I am your host, Sophie Alcorn. I'm the founding attorney of Alcorn Immigration Law, the fastest growing immigration law firm in Silicon Valley. We work with rapidly scaling tech companies and highly motivated professionals from around the globe, including serial entrepreneurs, investors, and their families. Today, I am so honored to be joined by a special guest, Tim Draper, a third-generation venture capitalist and the founder of the illustrious Draper University. I first learned about Tim through my clients, because many of my global clients attended his startup educational programs at Draper U. And so through my opportunities to meet with these really passionate global founders from all over the world, Canada, Iran, South Africa, Brazil, people from places where you might think that, the venture ecosystem might not even be that strong, but he's a magnet for attracting really passionate global founders. And I had the honor to support them and also meet his amazing, super dedicated team at Draper University. And so I got to learn some more things about Tim. Proud that we share the same alma mater, Stanford, for our bachelor's degrees. And I've been in awe of everything he's created, currently investing through Draper Associates. And he was a big and early proponent and investor of Bitcoin and is also known for creating viral marketing. So with that, I would just love to say hello, Tim, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Great. Thank you, Sophie, and thank you for all your help. I love that we had a little conversation before this, and I gotta mention that Sophie said that immigration is just a limiting technicality, and getting people into various countries is what she does, and she does it in a beautiful way. So thank you for having me on your show. It's great to be here, and
thank you.
Look forward to it. And I'm happy that we're starting to open the borders again.
Yeah, it's such a relief. There's so many good things happening. And well, so one of the things I learned about you from your prior interviews, and is this true? You started becoming a capitalist from picking apples as
Yes.
as an 8-year-old?
Well, I just knew that socialism wasn't for me.
Okay.
I don't think North Korea and I would do very well, or Russia and I, or even China and I now. But I picked apples, and I sold them on the street, and it was for quite a while. I was maybe 12 years old, 10, 11 years old.
Wow.
And I was picking all these apples, and over the course of about 2 or 3, well, maybe 4 or 5 weeks, I went out there every day, picked the apples, brought them out, and sold them on the street.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, friends would come by and they'd say, "Hi, how are you doing?" And then my neighbor's mother comes over and says, "So you've been selling apples on the street for a long time?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, who's been here? Who of your friends has helped you sell the apples?" I said, "Well, and I listed about 5 people who had come through." And she said, "How much money do you have?" And I said, $8. And I'm all excited. $8.
Yeah.
And she takes the $8 and she says, "That's one for you, one for each of these other people." And then she walks away with $2. And I thought, what happened?
Oh my goodness.
And so that was the beginning of my belief that
Yeah.
capitalism
Yeah.
works a lot better than socialism.
Yeah. And
Socialism and you know, I think it's sort of also stems from trust in government.
mm,
If
oh,
you
that's a big
trust your
issue
government,
these
if you
days.
trust your currency, or you
Yeah.
trust your government, or you trust,
Mhm.
then you feel that you can build something for the long term. You can
Right.
build a business that can grow, and you can build value over time,
Hmm.
that can take care of your family and do all the things that you want to do. But if you don't trust the government, if the government takes it from you,
Right.
or if the government currency doesn't hold up,
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
say, well, wait, what's the point? Because I build this, and I built it for a trillion Argentine pesos,
Exactly.
and all of a sudden the peso the next day is worth about half what it was the day before, and half the next day, and pretty soon your trillion Argentine pesos aren't worth much.
I
And
had this conversation with an Argentine founder this year. He was WhatsApping me in the middle of the night, like, Sophie, I might have to flee the country. I might have to sell my car to leave and be able to fly out. I
yeah,
don't know
they're
what's
all going
happening.
to Uruguay,
Yeah.
and they're using Bitcoin now. They see,
Yeah.
if you can build your business in Bitcoin, you have a stable currency, you have
Mm,
Bitcoin, and you can
mm-hmm.
build that business up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it used to be that you felt kind of good like that way about the dollar, but now they're printing them by the trillions,
Yeah.
and we're seeing the possibility of big inflation coming, and then people will start wondering why they're doing the work if
Right.
10 to 20% a year, you lose your value.
So then would you suggest to aspiring entrepreneurs who are interested in moving to the US, and there's so many reasons people want to move here: access to VCs like yourself, access to a sophisticated ecosystem of product managers who can help scale a company very large, personal safety for their family. Would you still suggest that startup founders in the US base their companies on Bitcoin, even if there's other reasons to come to the US right now?
Yeah, I think long term we're all going to be using Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
I long term have the ambition and hope that I can raise a fund in Bitcoin, entirely in Bitcoin,
Ah,
invest it entirely in Bitcoin, and
wow.
have my portfolio companies pay their employees and suppliers entirely in Bitcoin, and have the whole thing built on smart contracts, so that
How
if you have a
fun.
big event, then all the
Right.
LPs get paid off, and it goes straight into their wallets. The waterfall goes straight to their wallets, and we don't need the accounting. The accounting
Ah,
happens on blockchain, and
right. It's all
keeps
automated.
perfect records, and then I get to see what all these entrepreneurs are spending their money on, so we
Right.
can catch potential problems and nip them in the bud.
Right.
And then the accounting bill, the bookkeeping bill, the transfer agent bill, the auditing bill, they all kind of go away
Probably
because
a
it's
lot of
all
legal
done
bills.
automatically on the blockchain.
Right.
So
Right.
yes,
That's amazing.
I would say that people and I think people should continue to come to America, to Silicon
Mm,
Valley, because it
mm.
is still, we've done a big analysis, and the report, I don't want to spoil the report, but America comes out still as number
That's
one
good to
place for
hear.
startups, but it's
That's good
close.
to hear. That's
But it's
great.
close.
Yeah.
But if you come from Senegal or Bolivia or Brazil or Argentina or Nigeria or whatever, this is a great thing to do. Come to the Silicon Valley, and we feel that Draper University is a bit of an on ramp for people
Mm-hmm.
who want to become
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Will you tell us,
And
tell the audience a little bit about the various types of programming that you offer that they could apply to?
yeah, we have an entrepreneur class that's online, so you don't need to immigrate. Um, we had to do it because of
COVID.
COVID, because blocked off the borders. we had to create an online program. Turns out it was very successful. People loved it. We got a 9.3 out of 10
Wow.
NPS score for it.
Wow.
And people just love this. It's a 2-week program, and we inspire you and drive you to become entrepreneurs. And then for the people who can get to the Silicon Valley, we have hero training, and it's a 6-week course in place where we train you.
This is my
I
shirt I
train
got.
superhero.
So this is my honorary shirt from being a teacher at DU.
Yeah, we do all sorts of things with the students, from spiritual training to intellectual training to physical training. We have Navy SEALs and Special Forces, Army Rangers come and put you through survival training. We do a hackathon. We call it a hero-a-thon. So you can come up with a great idea.
What I loved about your in-person programming, which I'm sure will come back soon, was that there were dance breaks in between every class, and everybody was dancing.
I think when you got to be an entrepreneur, you've got to shed all the high school hangups.
Yeah.
And that's the way we look at it. We say, if we can get these entrepreneurs to shed their high school hangups, they won't worry too much about what the people around them are thinking.
Right.
If they really do have a vision for the future, because that vision's going to look a little fuzzy along the way, but there will be moments of clarity where you say, oh, but it's got to happen. Right. And there will be plenty of people around you saying, why don't you just take an investment banking or a consulting job?
Right. Or folks in your home country who have no idea what a Silicon Valley tech entrepreneur is and be a farmer, right?
Sure.
Because genius can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a major metropolitan US area.
And if you're a farmer, your genius can be spread to the world. It doesn't have to just be on one tiny farm in the middle of campus.
I want to focus in on something you said, spiritual training, because our podcast audience might know that I tend to wax spiritual sometimes when I'm doing this podcast by myself. I'm a big proponent that, we all need to follow our hearts. And if we can do one thing to support one person to follow their heart a little bit more, life is not a zero-sum game, and it ends up creating more abundance and opportunity for all of us. What sort of spiritual beliefs do you have, or do you teach your entrepreneurs?
Well, we teach mindfulness, which is sort of a general spiritual thing. We get our entrepreneurs to stare up at the stars and ask them the question, does it end? Or does it keep going? Both are scary.
I have goosebumps.
Then we do things to connect them with the other people, the other life forms around the earth, the ocean. We do things to connect them. And then we have a woman come in who is a Tony Robbins acolyte.
Oh yeah.
Who has them map their own lives. So you say, where are you now? And they try to draw a map of where they are now. And then where do you want to be? And then how are you going to get there? And what are the things in the way of getting you from here to there?
That's what I always train my attorneys to ask every potential client in a consultation, because it doesn't matter if we're doing an O or an H or an F or whatever. That's just tools. But if we can't help you get to where you're going, if we don't know where you want to go.
Right. So. You don't know how long are you going to stay in the Silicon Valley? Do you want to be a citizen? Do you want to just get that green card and get to work? Do you want
that? Do you just want that IPO and to not be a tax resident of the US, right? There's all different things for different people. I have another question for you that I've been thinking about, because you talked about the connection to the earth, and I'm very much a strong proponent of entrepreneurship. And one of the things I've been thinking about is how we can align business incentives to be in the earth's best interest, the oceans, forests. What
That
are your thoughts on that?
that is so funny. I was just talking with Mark Benioff about this. How do you incentivize? Because I know. Look, socialism doesn't work. Dictatorships don't work. Capitalism works. Free
Mm-hmm.
markets work.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you structure the free market so that we do things like, hey, how
Right.
do we save the planet?
How do we clean up the plastic in the Pacific Ocean, for
So
example?
we were talking, and I suggested something. He's working on something kind of interesting with corporates and
Mm,
how they can work on where a currency is a carbon credit, where you start thinking,
mm,
so cap and trade and all that become a big
mm-hmm,
deal.
mm-hmm.
But I was thinking, what if the consumer, um, uh, when they consume, if they're consuming something positive, they get
Oh,
proactive
credits.
credits
Yeah,
and maybe some tokens or Bitcoin or something.
yeah.
And if they're consuming things that are not as good for the environment,
Right.
then they pay into that pot.
And
And
this
so,
works with credits for cloth sacks that you bring to the grocery store, and you pay 5 cents for a plastic bag. Could we do
yeah.
this on blockchain?
So yeah, so you could do something like that. And you got a new president. Let's give him
Yeah.
a few new ideas,
Yeah.
and he wants to save us from global warming. I think that kind of thing could happen. Now, from
Yeah.
the supply side, that's from the
Mm-hmm.
demand side. From the supply side,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's entrepreneurs that are going to solve this. Um,
Yeah.
they're going to come up with, one entrepreneur I met in Korea seemed a little crazy, but he came up to me and he told me about how you could shoot an umbrella out of the um, atmosphere, big, huge umbrella, mile wide or something, and have it just rotate around the Earth and just block the sun at the hottest time. So it would always be there at noon for it to
Oh,
have a big
yeah.
cloud in the
Just
sky at noon,
geolocates.
just
Ge-
one big thing that keeps moving. And he said that could
Oh,
reduce the temperature by 1 degree or something. And other people are saying
wow.
shoot dust into the sky, and then you won't have as much of the greenhouse effect. Um,
Wow.
or or people who, where Elon said $100 million for somebody who can figure out how to come up with a device that takes carbon dioxide and turns it into oxygen. And I've got it. It's a tree. So we're looking at a company that plants trees
Oh, that's beautiful.
very efficiently by
So
drone.
funny. Ooh, that's great. That reminds me of if only we had an efficient biodegradable packaging for bananas and oranges. Oh, wait, they come with that, right? Wow. Okay. Well, you mentioned something about politics. And so I just wanted to touch on that briefly. Uh, I'm seeing some potential movement for a startup visa or a startup parole program to be launched through the Department of Homeland Security as a regulation. And I know you've been involved in politics, for example, trying to split up California into a bunch of different states, which
Yeah.
the Supreme Court nixed. But I found that fascinating. Uh, what message would you have for politicians about the value of international entrepreneurship and why we should have programs like a startup visa?
Yeah. My advice is do it. We want a startup visa. We want startups here.
Mhm.
We don't necessarily want the entrepreneur's grandma here. We don't want to take care of everybody. But look, if you're starting a business, we want those people to come to the Silicon Valley, to America, and achieve the American dream, creates
And
jobs,
it
creates
ripples
wealth.
out. Grandma ends up being nice and happy.
Grandma will be fine, but keep
Yeah,
her where she is. We don't want to take care of her in her old age unless she's been here building
yeah,
value for our country.
right. Well,
Um,
and why do investors want entrepreneurs to be geographically near them? What have you learned from COVID about some of the limitations of remote collaboration from investors
yeah,
to entrepreneurs?
we're now funding some of the first companies we've ever funded where I haven't had a face-to-face conversation. Well, face-to-face on Zoom, but a conversation where I was in the same room as the person I funded. Um, that has been a little challenging, but in some ways, um, what we lose in EQ for being in touch with each other, we gain
Mm-hmm.
an IQ when it's a Zoom call. So I
Mm,
think I get more information, more data, but I
mm,
don't get the feel as much.
yeah.
And that'll be kind of interesting seeing how that happens. But that doesn't matter too much because I think we'll be successful
Based on the
finding great
IQ.
entrepreneurs through the IQ system.
And you can sort, you have more at the top of the funnel because you're not limited by transportation and in-person meeting. But I
Right.
noticed that too, and I wonder if entrepreneurs could somehow build something for this. But there's something that happens when people are together. To be woo-woo, we feel each other's energy, we shake hands, we feel body
Right.
temperature. There's probably some sort of pheromone thing, heartbeat
Yeah.
regulation going on that people do in groups. So I'm looking forward to
I
having that
miss all
back one
that.
day. I miss it
I
too.
miss all that.
And then another question, something that occurred to me with your VC fund in Bitcoin. There's a lot of emerging VC funds and specifically immigrant-based accelerators. And I think there's a huge opportunity there. It's something I'm interested in building out. And marrying that with the blockchain concept could be a really a stellar opportunity. How do you see the potential overlap of those?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin has done something really interesting because it is global and open and transparent and much the way the internet is.
Mm-hmm.
And humans are going to have an anthropological leap away from um, tribalism, where we all have our borders, to a
Mm-hmm.
global world.
Yes.
And Bitcoin allows that global world.
Yes.
And Zoom and Skype or whatever also are enabling that world. So I don't know exactly where you are. You don't know exactly where I am, but we're
Right.
still able to operate together. Well, the better this gets, the more likely we're going to be able to work with people from everywhere around the world very easily and get that brainstorming, everything but the pheromones. But we, what that means is that if we're paying everybody in Bitcoin, it's going to stabilize the world because
Mm.
somebody in Pakistan or Brazil who's a really good programmer is going to be paid in Bitcoin, and then the person in Silicon Valley is also paid in Bitcoin. That those people are, let's say, they're all equal in talent. Um, I think eventually they'll all be equal in pay.
A
The
global free
American
market.
tends to be paid more
Absolutely.
and gets a little more coddled, like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they have to have the healthcare and the this and the that. But employers are going to say, well, wait a second, if we're all remote, I think most of my hiring should be in places where it's a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm. We see that,
But
and then we see,
over time,
yeah,
they're
it's
going
gonna
to
balance with the
equalize.
economic forces. Yeah.
So that's going to be really interesting because that will create a powerful source for workforces. I think this is going to be really
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, that's another question I have. So workforces, before COVID, I think YC hired an economist or a sociologist to explore universal basic income. You said socialism doesn't work. I have a
Right.
concern that we need immigration from a US standpoint because our STEM education isn't preparing people
Mhm.
for these jobs that the future is bringing, which is one of the reasons I think it's great that international entrepreneurs want to come here because they create jobs for Americans. But what do you predict some of the changes might be that we'll see as this world economy stabilizes through Bitcoin, but also um, job readiness, and how we're going to make sure that the world is a place where everybody has a chance to do well?
Well, there's no question that the best education systems today are the countries that are going to have the best future tomorrow. um, Singapore has been number one in education for a number of years, and they also have this amazing trust. When Lee Kuan Yew took over, the average Singaporean was making about $100 a year. The average Singaporean today is making about $63,000 a year.
Wow.
And it all had to do with trust and education. And that was a 70-year run, something like that, where Lee Kuan Yew was in power.
Yeah.
But during that 70 years, they went from the poorest, possibly the poorest country in the world, one of the poorest, to one of the richest countries in the world. And they did it with trust and education.
How do leaders inspire trust?
They are honest.
Oh, okay.
It just spreads down the food chain.
Great.
If you have corruption at the top, you have corruption all the way through the country.
Wow.
If you have honesty at the top, you have honesty all the way through the
It's
country.
so simple. That's so beautiful. Thank
So it's
you.
totally easy. And
Well,
then freedom's important too. But you also mentioned UBI. My friend Brock Pierce came up with this concept of universal
basic
income.
income.
Universal earned income.
Ooh.
And it has a different connotation. You
Yes.
earn it for being a consumer. You earn it for being a part of the world. You earn it for that. And so,
because there is an exchange of value by participating in the system, by
all the time,
buying
absolutely.
things so your data goes
Just
into
being
ads.
there with an opinion, with a need, with food, with whatever. So I like that concept.
Yeah.
Basic income means like
A
it's
freebie.
a goal. It doesn't feel right.
I like the energetic exchange aspect, that there's some value on both sides.
And then tying that to, I'm big on incentives. If you tie that to how the economy does, so GDP, then people go, way to go, Bill Gates. Way to go, Larry Ellison. Way to go, Mark Zuckerberg.
Right.
Because you guys are adding to my universal earned income. And so the incentive system all changes.
Yeah.
And then you get another piece of incentive is you tell the government employees, no, it's not, you're not getting income based on CPI, which is like a dole. You're getting income based on GDP growth, so that your incentive is for the economy to grow, even though you're there to create and enforce rules. We're also there to help grow the economy and make the world better.
That's amazing. And we could
so
do it all on
if
blockchain.
you create the right kinds of incentives, all of a sudden, boom, everything works.
Yeah.
And then I did mention that the incentive that you lose, where let's say you're in an African nation and you know that if you build something of value, the government just comes and steals it. Some African nations, some are getting really good. Some. Well, you have no incentive to work hard and build something. But if you have a very honest government that says you are here to build value, then that value gets built, the government shares in it, the people share in it, everybody benefits.
So we get the
And then
government on
there's
blockchain.
also there's something about the governments that are free. South Korea was free and North Korea was restricted.
Hmm.
North Korea was socialist, restricted dictatorship. South Korea was capitalist, free market, open, free.
Yes.
Well, now we've had that experiment now for 50 years or something, 40 years, and there's been there's the demilitarized zone. It's right between the two countries. Well, the average South Korean makes 400 times as much as the average North Korean.
Wow.
And the average South Korean is now 4 inches taller than the average North Korean. How much more do you need to know?
Boom. Wow. Well, Tim,
And I think
just
the
have...
average lifespan of a South Korean is about 20 years longer than the average North Korean, but I haven't checked that.
Wow. Wow. Thank you to all those souls participating in those experiments. Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness.
then we all learn from it.
We
Yeah.
all learn. So I know our audience is dying to know what you look for when you invest in a company.
Great. I'm looking for something unique where you as the entrepreneur have some special edge, whether that is a crazy passion for this one thing, a good general understanding of the market. You're a great programmer or scientist or inventor. You mentioned STEM, coming from technology, the technology side is usually a better place to start for an entrepreneur, but not always.
Yeah.
And then when we look at the business plan, we might run a quick Google search and say, how many more are there out there? And if there are 100,000 hits on what you're doing, you should probably rethink it, because they're probably companies that are much bigger and better financed than you are, and they're going to beat you. But if there are only 3 or 4, might be worth a bet. Okay. And if you have something that's special, then that makes a big difference to us too. And then when we meet with you, I always say you got to be enthusiastic, but it's also, you don't need to be a cheerleader. You just need to feel it in your heart, and we'll see it. We'll get a sense for it. If it comes out of your heart, it's like. And then the other thing we're always looking for is, when I'm looking at a company, I do 2 things. I say, how big can this get? And so is it worth your time to do this? And then the other is, what does the world look like in this scenario? Ooh. When you get to where you want to go, what does this look like 5 or 10 years out? Ooh. And what does the world look like as a result of what you've just done?
That's so exciting.
And that has been successful for me.
Yeah.
I've been able to fund 38 unicorns or something over my life. So exciting. And I seeded most of them, and I did it based on like those. I wasn't focused on what could go wrong. I had a lot of partners that were
get what you
focused on
think
what could go wrong.
about. You get what you think about. And so if you're looking for the positive outcome, that's what you're going to draw towards you. So that's,
yeah, I think that there's something about that too.
A testament.
Yeah, positive mental attitude.
So in closing, I would love to know if you have any advice for founders, or maybe, something that you think about that's helped you get through dark times.
Yeah. Elon Musk, when I interviewed him, he said, don't do it. Don't start a business. Because I caught him on a particularly very tired day when he was launching the S car when I interviewed him. But I would say do it. But I would say do it because, hey, you got a pretty good chance that you're going to fail. But when you fail and you're doing something and you're proactively doing it, you learn so much more than if you're just kind of taking a job and counting the hours in the day. I think, going out there and trying something is so powerful, and you will learn so much. In your dark times, I always go back to we have a pledge at Draper University, and one of the lines of the pledge is, "I will fail and fail again until I succeed." And that has actually taken people through some of their darkest times. They've come back to me and said, I don't know, I don't remember any of the rest of the pledge, but boy, I remember failing.
That's beautiful. So you just get up and keep going, and you have no
Yeah,
idea.
and just know everybody, boy, I had a horrible day yesterday. I lost my temper. It was a horrible day. First time I'd lost my temper in like 20 years. And I realized, yeah, well, everybody has really bad days, and you have to get through them and then wake up the next day and say, we got another one. Let's see if we can make this one better than the last one. Or what was it that went wrong there, and what can we do better? I actually, by going out and raising money and being turned down a lot, I learned all sorts of things about my industry that I wouldn't have known if I had not.
Wait, so you're so successful. You're telling me you have failed in life?
Many times. Many times. You don't get there without going the other way a lot.
Oh, it's so inspiring. And yeah, our emotions are just there to tell us something about what we want or don't want, or our thoughts in alignment with what our heart is saying, right? So, so human. Tim, I'm so honored to have this conversation with you.
And this was so fun, Sophie. You got me talking about a lot of fun stuff. Send me the link. I'll spread it.
It was great. I know our audience will be so mesmerized, and I hope we can do it again someday. So
absolutely. This is great.
You.
Yeah, you're good at this, by the way. You keep doing it.
Okay, I want to. Thank you so much. And for everybody listening, please subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. People adore our newsletter. So please connect with Alcorn, and we'd love to support you. And Tim, I'm wishing you health and wellness and prosperity and peace and joy, and for you and everybody in your network who you touch. And just thank you so much for shining your light.
And I just want everybody to know out there, if you are just listening on a podcast and you don't see this, Sophie has a smile that is contagious. And you should just, see it on YouTube. It's totally contagious.
You flatter me, Tim. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophie. This was really fun.
Have a beautiful day. Okay. Bye.